I'm so excited. Um, so this is the first of hopefully many powerful conversations. So I'm here, Stephanie's here because we're trying to share powerful conversations. It's really my intention to begin to talk about the things that I always talk about with my friends, but maybe never see how it makes sense in the realm of social media, or how do I write about it? How do I explain the conversations? Hi, Julie.
Hi,
Um,
Julie.
Basically, you and I have had some of the most beautiful conversations, and we connect on such a deep level. Our work is so similar. And we were talking maybe a week or two ago, and I was like, we have got to start recording these. So really, we're not showing up with a whole lot of agenda, except for the intention to have a powerful conversation, to show up exactly as we are, which me today, I am moody and fiery and also excited. I feel many things all at once. And it's my intention just to be of service and to have, that conversation on a platform where we can share with, more than just each other, basically.
Yeah, and just trusting and honoring that, whatever comes forward is exactly what's meant to. And, how many times, I don't know if you can attest to this, Lulu, but how many times if you open social media and seen a post or a video or something that just like really hits you in the heart, it's like exactly what you were meant to see at that point. It can kind of be like a little message from the divine, like the ethers coming through to you. And so I'm just trusting that whatever comes forward in this conversation is medicine for whoever needs to see it, including us, in whatever way that is meant to be, however it's meant to serve us too.
I love that. A lot of what I feel like we work with as healers is like kind of navigating the masculine and the feminine. And this kind of new way of categorizing, like we've lived our lives, especially as women, most of our lives as in that masculine, in like exercising in a masculine way, writing in a masculine way, performing in a masculine way, which basically what that means is like it's a very specific structural design. And as human beings, whether we identify as men or women, we have masculine and feminine elements all the time, like present within us all the time. We can even have a more masculine day, a more feminine day. So how have you really navigated balancing that masculine and feminine element in your own life and in your own healing?
Yeah, I would love to hear your answer to this question too, Lindsay. Like, this is something I feel like I was actually talking about this with my husband the other day, just like what is masculine and feminine, because a lot of people, I think, maybe don't understand what that means on an energetic perspective. And it's much more than male and female. It is like the energies that are in all of us, but our culture is really designed to, be more masculine. So masculine being the linear, the assertive, maybe even aggressive way of accomplishing and doing. It's like you see the target and you hit it. Whereas feminine energy is more of the void, the uncertain, the flow, the unknown, going with the flow. And we need both of those energies integrated in a healthy way in order to really feel balanced, the elusive idea of balance. So I feel like this is something that I play with every single day. Like I'm learning more about how to integrate it, in a healthy way. And so for those of you that don't know me, I trained as a dancer from age 5 until whatever, 35. Like I danced professionally for years and in ballet, and that the training for that was extremely masculine, you know, no pain, no
Mm.
gain. You suck it up, suck it in. And just like, the audience doesn't care if your feet are bleeding. Like, you just like, you perform. And at the same time, it was this very feminine appearing, you know, watery, flowy, tutus, tiaras, you know, appearance based world. And so for me, like, that kind of shaped and informed like my way of being, you know, like looking feminine on the outside, but approaching everything with that like go getter, high achieving, you know, suck it up mentality. And so, you know, I found that being in that world and really having that, like going to one extreme with it, and then now, you know, kind of having moments of going to the opposite extreme, like really being in my feminine and really being in the flow, like how to integrate both, you know. And I think that it's like kind of with our bodies, often it's that understanding, you know, of the extremes, like actually tuning in and listening to what feels true and aligned. Like if we're exhausted, we need to rest, but our culture doesn't often, you know, prioritize rest. You know, rest is
Or
seen as
respect it.
unproductive. Exactly. So I feel
Mm.
like I could keep going on that, but I'm curious to know what's coming up for you, and maybe even like, what do you feel like, what do you feel is a healthy integration of both masculine and feminine energies in your life and in your work too?
Mm-hmm. Well, ideally, you want both. You want them both, and you want them both together. Like you want them in union with one another. And another definition I really enjoy of masculine and feminine is masculine is the unchanging reality, and the feminine is the changing reality. So it's the moon and the sun, you know, two opposites. Like the sun shows up in the same way every day, the moon shows up in a different way every day. And so it's navigating both, which as a woman is like a totally new experience every day. And for me, walking into my feminine was one of the scariest journeys I've ever taken.
Yeah.
I too resonate. I was like, I grew up as a competitive athlete. I was raised by a coach. He was a basketball coach. My mom was also a competitive athlete. I swam year round for about 10 years, which is basically comparable to military school. I've heard a lot of people in the sports industry refer to it as that level of intensity. And walking into my feminine was really scary. It was really, it was like a homecoming, and at the same time, the most opposite of what I guess I was programmed to do or programmed to feel. And I started to recognize, you know, all the ways that my, like, either my soul or my inner child or, you know, my little girl was like actively rebelling against my choices as an adult. And it's been a journey of like really day by day. Like I wake up in the morning and I have created a life where I can allow myself to feel or to practice, you know, whatever really resonates with me that day. Like, and if it's not first thing in the morning, if I do have to do or perform some sort of work at some point in that day, I have space and time for stillness. I have space and time for silence. I have space and time for whatever kind of movement or not movement resonates for me that day. So I give myself space. Like, I really think that is one of the most important things, you know, in navigating our own healing, especially if you're healing from trauma, is to offer yourself space. Like, and also that reminder, like I have to remind myself every single day that there is not a right or wrong way to be myself. There's not a right or
Yeah.
wrong way to perform this day. because it has never existed before. And like, here we are in quarantine, post apocalypse pandemic, you know, and a lot of my clients are putting so much pressure on themselves with this expectation that they're supposed to know how to do this. Like, oh, you know, back 5 years ago when we had the same thing happen, you know, like, no, this is the first time. And I think collectively we're all in this feminine energy of uncertainty, of like, what the fuck do we do now?
Yeah, and it's bringing up a lot for people too. And I think even just the concept of rushing, you just kind of mentioned that a second ago, like our culture is very much in the urgency, hustle, grind mode. And it's like that rushing can be inherently traumatic to our nervous systems, you know? So like go,
Yes.
go, go, not respecting and honoring rest, like we were talking about, and being in that place where it's like, highest performance at all costs. Like, who gives a shit if your body is breaking down, if you're, you know, beginning to have like health breakdowns, like you just keep pushing through, you know, you guzzle more coffee or you eat more sugar or whatever it is, like just keep pushing yourself. And now what I've been finding, at least personally, you know, because I find that the sort of like roots of that are very deep within me, you know, just in terms of that feeling, the urgency, like that sense of urgency and having to, you know, punch a clock or be on a timeline, with this sort of forced surrender that we're all in, and forced slowing down, and forced, you know, being just in one place. Like, I find that my nervous system and my body are beginning to recalibrate to more of that natural, cyclical, spiritual time. And it's like I find myself wanting to just sit outside in nature and really learn. Like, nature is my greatest teacher, truly. I mean, even you spoke of the moon, it's like the cycles of nature, the cycles of the moon, like, you know, the moon shows up differently every single day, you know, the
Yes.
seasons, like there's no rushing a flower to bloom. There's no rushing like spring, summer, winter, fall to come. It's like, it's on its own timeline. It's this like infinite natural intelligence that isn't like listening to the man, you know. It's not like punching a clock. It's just it's happening perfectly, you know. And really understanding and recognizing that our bodies are a part of that tapestry, right? Like, our bodies are connected to nature because we are nature. We contain all of the elements within us: fire, water, earth, air. Like, we are nature, and we are so connected to what's going on. It's like most people can probably to some degree feel, you know, when it's you know, you if you're in touch with nature, you know, you have like sort of a typical schedule. Like, you wake up when the sun goes up and you start to get tired when the sun goes down. But, you know, as intelligence and technology has expanded, we have lights that can keep us up later, or we have, you know, air conditioning or electricity that can kind of manipulate the seasons. And that can be confusing for a body and a nervous system that hasn't changed from, you know, the beginning of time. Essentially everything else in our world has, but our bodies are very, very similar to what they were, you know, in caveman times. You know, it's like there's still like we're not much different than that, but our world is so much different. And so, yeah, like, we are resilient and we're capable and we're strong and we're, you know, forces of nature in and of ourselves, but we're also connected to something greater than us that hasn't changed. The seasons haven't adapted to technology, you know. There's something else I was going to say, but I'm blanking. So I'm just going to turn it over to you. How do you feel like how do you feel this period of time and this sort of forced surrender of quarantine, and even just like as people are starting to emerge out of this time period, like, how do you feel that's affecting you, your body, your nervous system?
Well, you know, some of the biggest feedback I've gotten so far, and very much something I feel within my own life, is whether or not how fast, slow we were moving before, after spending, 2 months basically not moving, not really going anywhere, not having a schedule, not operating in the same way that you've operated, and whether or not this pandemic changed your schedule or not, some people are working more, some people are working less, but regardless, we're all affected. And the largest piece that I'm really getting for myself and receiving from a lot of my clients is, I don't want to go back. There's this, as soon as we surrendered to the slowing down, there was like this, oh my God, what was I even doing before? And, mothers who had their children in like all the activities are now just like, well, I don't think we're going to go back to that right away. Or there is this slowing down and this hesitation, which is really healthy. There's a healthy aspect and an unhealthy aspect to just about everything. There is an unhealthy aspect to the feminine. There's an unhealthy aspect to the masculine. And typically, like when we're moving fast pace, like when we're like rapidly moving through everything, valuing ourselves based on our productivity, there's like, you get used to that pace, but also at some point, the body is going to say, excuse me, this is not working. The body is going to stop you. It's going to slow you down. Whether it slows you down with illness, like you catch a cold, a stomach virus, basically, like when we're moving that fast, our immunity slows down because we're not always taking care of ourselves in the best way. Maybe we're not, like you spoke about the nervous system, like our nervous system isn't getting a chance to really reset because our bodies are not designed to run on that sort of schedule for extended periods of time. And this is not like a, don't have a full life. This is like, you're overdoing it, dude. Like you're seriously overdoing it. And the body will, like the immunity goes down. And so our immune systems are more susceptible, or something bigger pops up, an injury, a car crash, a disease forms or is found, created. Something is going to come up and slow you down if you're choosing not to listen to those signals in your body. And the other thing I wanted to make sure I touch on is like, this is not a bash to the masculine. This is like a rebalance, like the masculine is so beautiful. It works in so many healthy ways. And it's more of a, let's take a little less, like, let's take a few parts of the masculine, like let's take the rituals, let's take the steadiness, let's take the unchanging and meld it with the changing, and see how that unchanging, having rituals in place in your life, can allow you to meet whatever's coming up for you and navigate it and the best for your overall well-being. So it's not like a don't ever punch a clock, screw the 9 to 5. It's more of a take a second look. Is this really serving you? Because our bodies always know what is working and what's not working. And if you want to know what the signal is, like, well, it's probably the one that's punching you in the face every day saying, I'm tired, I'm burned out, I don't want to do this, 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 I don't want to do this.
Yes.
And you're wondering what you want, well, I'll tell you what you don't want. It's the thing that your body is telling us you don't want.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like two things pop up for me as you're saying that. Thank you for presencing all of that because, there is that language, the subtlety with which our body speaks. And actually, it's much clearer than we might even give it credit for. And so, as you're talking about, essentially, we're kind of talking about like extremes from one extreme to the next. If you talk about from like a trauma informed lens in the nervous system, it's that hypo arousal, hyper arousal being the fight or flight response, whereas hypo arousal is that collapse, right? And so both of those perhaps could be looked at from the extremes of the masculine and feminine, extreme unhealthy masculine being that fight or flight response, and extreme unhealthy feminine being hypo arousal, being that in that collapse or freeze place. Whereas what we're really looking for is the regulation, like where is the integration of both? Where is that, I hate to use the word balance because I think a true balance doesn't really exist. Like when you think about in yoga or my experience with dancing, like balancing on one leg, there's a lot going on to keep you in place, lots of little micro movements. So that concept of balance, like our culture really thinks of it as this like prize to be won, when there's really a lot going on in order to keep you in that place of regulation, in that place of healthy integration. And so we're looking at, how do we do that? Like, how do we actually be in a place where we are feeling resourced, regulated, whole, and integrated of those productivity sort of pieces, but then also giving ourselves that rest and digest experience as well. And our body, again, back to the body and the language of the body, our body is really such a powerful ally in that. And I recently was like toiling mentally about some decision, and I was like, I feel like I'm talking myself out of this, but it feels wrong. Like my body is telling me it feels wrong, but it looks good on paper. It looks like it should make sense. And so when we have this, society where for much of our, lives, many generations, we've been told that emotions are not valid and something to, not be revealed. Females have been looked at as too emotional. You're supposed to keep all of that under wraps. And actually, like, our emotions can really guide us to our intuition. So that feeling sense, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling, whatever it is, if you can take the opportunity to dive into that a little bit more, like we feel all of that through our body. Emotions are felt through our body. It's like that language is there, not only like the physical sensations, but the emotional sensations. And if we can take the opportunity to just go a little bit deeper, like instead of being like, oh, this is an uncomfortable emotion, I don't want to feel it, I'm just gonna like busy myself and like think my way out of it, I'm just gonna recite this mantra and then I'm gonna like get my ass back, back on track. Like, wait a minute, can we just stop and feel it? Even if feeling it, if it's a really intense thing, maybe might even feel like a part of you is dying, like it's like so intense, there is something to be garnered from that. Like we have to move through those emotions and those feelings, like really feel them and like ask, like give your body a seat at the table, give your body's voice a seat at the table. Like, what are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to show me? What are you trying to like let me see that I'm kind of unwilling to see from my mind's perspective? Because truly from that place, like there's so much that our mind can kind of like talk us out of, right? But our body, especially from, somatic intelligence, like somatic experiencing, from a somatic perspective, from the neck down is it's an enormous body of information and wisdom and intelligence. And if we cut that off, we're only getting part of the picture. Like, we're not demonizing the mind and saying the mind's like, you know, oh, you can't trust your mind. Sometimes you can't. I mean, I'm sure we've all had experiences where we make a big story about what's going on, but it's actually like, oh, this person's mad at me or that thing. And then to come to find out, like, none of that is even true. It just all happened here. It's like, okay, yeah, like our minds are really great in a lot of ways. And like, it's not just neck up. Like, we have to start to integrate again that other part of our vast wisdom and intelligence, our bodies. Our bodies, again, are deeply connected to nature. So nature being that, you know, infinite intelligence operating with a dynamic force of wisdom. I don't even have words for it. You know, nature's on its own cycle, timeline, clock, whatever you want to call it, operating with this like brilliance that our bodies are deeply connected to. And to like cut that off and say like, I don't understand what you're telling me, so I'm just going to ignore it. I'm not going to feel it. I'm going to push it down. That's actually like severing so much of our wisdom, you know? And I think a lot of the holistic healing that, you know, we teach our people is really about the integration of mind, body, and spirit, knowing that the holistic piece is really the integration of all three of those. Because if we're only living from one place, like we're only giving attention to the mind, then there's all this other wisdom, information, beauty that we're missing out on from our spirit and our body. And you know, I think
And
that's also
aliveness.
and aliveness. And that's also part of, you know, what the feminine is really inviting us into at this particular point in time. It's really bringing the wisdom of the body and the soul back online, back to the table, bringing that voice, those voices more at an equal place with the mind.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the trouble in relying only on the mind, only on what you can see, like only on what has already happened, you know, part of the trouble of that is really shutting down a lot of the wisdom, like you said.
Yes.
Like there's so much, like we can predict the weather in our own bodies. Animals do it. We can do that. But when we spend time like looking at weather forecasts, you know, when we let other people do those things for us, we start to, you know, and that's like a really interesting example, right? That one's not really tuned into like the emotional or feeling center. That's just a capability that we turn off by idolizing the mind, by idolizing the intellect only. And like you said, it's this integration of them all that is so important, and softening around your experience. And you know, a lot of what has taken place within me during my healing journey is like this softening around judgment and remeasuring or reestablishing the yardstick by which I measure myself on. Like I realized that so many of the thoughts that were coming through my mind, like all of a sudden one day I was just like, whose voice is that telling me that I can't do this right now, or telling me that I can't feel this right now? Like whose voice is that? Because I know what my voice sounds like, and that's not it. So this softening around judgment, and right and wrong, and really opening up space. You know, also what came through while you were speaking about like cutting things off is the allopathic versus homeopathic medicine structures. So allopathic is very much rooted in the masculine. It's very much rooted in the intellect. And we have put doctors almost into like a godlike pedestal, when in reality, their knowledge base is limited. It's vast, but it's limited in this one area. And they're able to treat, emergency, they're able to treat so many things so beautifully, but they're not treating the whole. And when I studied Thai medicine, we went through a lot of the different structures, the Thai medicine, Chinese medicine, Indian medicine, and Western medicine, and all of them, except for ours, cover the mind, body, spirit. We only cover the mind and body. We do not cover the spirit. We do not cover spirituality. That's why religion is such an intense thing in America, is because we're trying to make up for that thing that we're lacking. And what's really interesting about holistic medicine is that it's very much coming from a different place. It's coming from a much more feminine, a much more like, well, let's see what's going on in your body, because I'm not going to assume that I know. And let's see where your emotional state or the holding of your emotions, like, let's see where that is causing some of this dis-ease in your body. And like, that's really the majority of my work, is I show people how their life shows up in their body.
Yes.
And how their body is showing them exactly what is going right. I mean, I don't really like to use right and wrong, but exactly what is aligning and exactly what is not. And if you're not feeling good, if you do not want to get out of bed, if you do not want to go to work, if your schedule is this series of like, I don't want to do it, okay, push through. I don't want to do it, push through. You're not living in alignment. And it doesn't mean that one way is right and one way is wrong. It's just not in alignment with you, because when you're in alignment, there is vibrance, there is joy, there's excitement. It's like, I get to do this today. I mean, there's this power moving you forward that is not from like obligation, expectation, judgment, should.
Yeah.
It's like, I get to, I want to, I desire to.
Yeah.
And moving forward, we really have to start to look at the ways that we classify everything for ourselves, especially as human beings who are working through trauma. So like, we're not speaking from a narcissistic point of view. We're not speaking about like the unhealthy aspect of asking your body what it needs. And, it's not a permission to go be a total self-centered asshole. It's like, permission to feel alive. It's permission to start taking up space. It's permission to acknowledge that your feelings matter, that you have a right to feel, that it's important, and that not expressing what you feel is causing illness, dis-ease within your body and your mind
and your life. Yeah. And it's often those, I love everything that you said, and I actually have a question for you to kind of follow up with that, but it's recognizing that the external is a symptom of what's really going on inside, so if you hate your life, and you're really like feeling a lot of that dread and obligation, really taking responsibility to be like, I've created all of this, and like with so much love and compassion and honoring of all of the things that have led you to exactly where you are. The choices that you have made have come from somewhere, and whatever they may be, recognizing that every moment is an opportunity to make a new choice, to do something different, to turn things around. And I think that especially when we're talking about trauma, and we have big T trauma and little t trauma, right? It's like big T trauma is the overwhelming, catastrophic, let's say, events that can be instantaneous, like a car accident. They can be long-term, like childhood abuse or a rape or something like that. I mean, there's so many things that fall under that category, but something that is too much, too fast for the body to handle. And then there's little T trauma, which is the daily things that happen, the stressors, the dread, the waking up to the alarm clock, your nervous system is fucking on fire, you know, right away. Like you're just like, go, 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 like feeling that, you know, sense of anxiety right away. It's those things that start to like really contract us and shut us down and make us become less of who we really are, and have us living less than the full expression of aliveness that we're capable of. And I think that this conversation is so much this conversation around aliveness and around living more fully and making choices that really serve us it's beautiful that that's much more on the forefront right now. You know, like a lot of us are examining ways in which we can honor ourselves more. I think that's, you know, a big part of what it comes down to is honoring ourselves more. And there can feel, I think, especially in my work with clients, I can see often a lot of shame that comes up because, you know, I work primarily with women. So I'll speak from you know, people that identify as women, those mind frames and those sets of voices and beliefs and stories that I kind of encounter a lot in my work. There can be a lot of that shame that comes up in which it's like, well, oh, there's something wrong with me, or I must be wrong or bad because I made XYZ choices and I don't see how I can really get out of this. And, you know, I think we can allow ourselves to continue being victims of our circumstance, you know, yes, with reinforcing those stories, or we can look at small actions that we can take to empower ourselves. That doesn't mean that you have to like quit your job, you know, tomorrow in order to live a happy, more alive life. Like, no, I think that that's unrealistic. Totally possible, but unrealistic for a lot of people who have built lives, have families, have careers where they're feeling secure, their bills are paid, you know, and then there's this sense of like, well, what am I just going to rip the rug out from underneath me? Like that in and of itself is inherently traumatic to be thinking that way. So my question to kind of follow up with all that you said, Lulu, is like, what would you say to someone who is in that place of waking up every morning in dread, kind of looking around themselves, looking at the life that they've created and being like, I don't like any of this. I don't want any of this. My body is telling me this. Like, I'm really unhappy. Like, what would you say to that person? What would you offer to them? What might you even invite them into as far as like some type of integrated, healthy, masculine, feminine action step?
Well, I would say healing is an inside job. And the thing I love to remind my clients of is that nothing in your external experience has to change for your relationship with everything about it to change. Nothing. And everything might change in your external experience once you have those internal shifts. But in my opinion, healing begins with awareness. And if you find yourself in a total misalignment, I would say start listening. Because odds are that total misalignment is overactivity, busyness, overscheduled, high stress, and really close to burnout, if not long past it. So I would say start listening. Get a journal and start listening. Start writing down how you feel. Start listening to the way you speak to yourself. Start listening to the way others speak to you. And, you know, listening is also a form of meditation. Start pausing and listening to the sounds around you and allow those sounds to draw you inward. And I mean, that's really, healing begins with awareness. It doesn't even matter what you do next, as long as you start to get really honest with yourself, you know, and you can choose to do the same thing. You do not have to change your choice. You can without but you can entirely change your relationship with your choice. But it's the unconsciousness that sometimes gets us into the biggest trouble. And when we have awareness, especially when it's new, you're not supposed to know what to do with it. Like week 1 of quarantine, I woke up to this disgusting, wild, intense new awareness of like, oh my God, things going on within me, things misaligning within me, healing that was taking place. Like I don't even have words to describe sometimes like the inner work that I do within myself, which allows me to hold infinite space for others, because you don't have to describe it.
Yep.
It's like, oh, I know exactly, when we talk and you're like, I got this thing, I'm like, yep, I know exactly. And when I got something, you're like, yep, I know exactly. And there's not words for it, but it's waking up to this new awareness, which can kind of feel like, oh my God, what? I've been doing this work for 11 years and I'm still like getting punch in the face awareness, new. And so it's not like it ever is going to stop. Like what we're saying ultimately is not new, but it's this call to listening. It's this call to awareness. And I would also say, allow things to be new. Like, okay, you woke up, you're aware it's not working. You're pissed, write about it. Tell me all about it. Talk to a friend, tell them all about it. Speak about it. Like, yeah, it's not working. Great. Let's do something new. And so if you wake up the next day and you're like, today, it's new. And you actively turned away from the automatic and turned on the presence, what would happen then?
Yeah.
And new is exciting. Like, remember when new used to be exciting? Like, we get a new pair of shoes and we're like, ooh. But we get a new opportunity to do life in a new way and we go, ah. But it's so good. It happens every 28 days. And even more intensely every year. So move toward it. New is fun, new is exciting, new is opportunity, new is possibility. Like, you do not have to do the same thing today that you did yesterday, nor do you have to judge yourself for it.
Yeah. Yeah, and even moment to moment, it's like that presence that you mentioned it's everything, right? Because each breath is an opportunity for something new, a new thought, a new way of being, each moment. And when we're rushing or overscheduled or overcommitted or acting out of obligation, we're not present. We're not able to really discern from deep within our being what is true.
Mm. Yes.
Yeah. So much in there.
This is what powerful conversations do. For me, it's like, of course. There's so many things in a conversation that offer you a place to be seen, to feel heard, and all the permission. Like, if you take nothing from this, take this. You have every permission to live in alignment with yourself. You have every permission to live in alignment with yourself. And you do not have to know what that looks like right now. Because guess what? It's going to change every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Letting yourself have a seat at the table, a voice. It's a rewriting for many of us. And when we have, a life of obligation or just a lot of responsibility or obligations that we've created for ourselves, we can start to treat ourselves like a kind of like a second class citizen, where our needs come second, third, fourth, fifth after everything else. And so,
which is really common for those
yes.
of you who identify as the empath. Those of you who identify as caregivers, caretakers, really common.
Really common. So common. Yeah. It's like we're hearing more and more about that now. And so just, again, inviting yourself to be at the forefront of your decisions, to like take a little bit more pause, to take a little more space for presence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Start listening. Listening is feminine. Speaking is masculine. So receiving. So when you're listening, you're receiving. So if you made one shift today to drop more fully into your feminine, it would be to speak less and listen more. And when you're listening, one of my favorite things to do when I listen is to actively feel that I'm receiving. Be like, oh, I'm receiving the sound of nature. I'm receiving the sound of this person's voice. I'm maybe receiving an answer to a question I've been asking. It's like, how many times have we been like, oh, just give me an answer, and then we won't shut up and listen for it. Or we're only looking this way when it wants to come in every other direction.
Yes. I recently watched someone speaking about something like that, and they said it's like having like a glass of water. Like, I want a glass of water. I want a glass of water. But we're like not actually like giving the 360, window, an opportunity to really like see and hear and feel everything, because we're just doing it one way.
Yeah, or we're looking for our keys or our sunglasses and they're in our hand. Like, we walk around pissed off. Where are they? Where are they? Where are they? Freaking out. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I had it the whole time.
Slow down. Take a
That's
second.
how it is with emotions too. That's how it is with things that we desire. It's like, they're already here. What are you looking for? It's already in here. It's like, but you have to stop and be like, oh, maybe even look down and be like, oh, I had it the whole time.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This has been so fun and heart expanding.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. So before we hop off, one, I want to give the people still here a chance to ask questions. And two, can you tell us about yourself and maybe how people can come hang out with you in an event or begin working with you if they resonated with something you said?
Totally. Yeah, I'll keep it brief. My name is Stephanie Burg. I didn't even say that, but I guess you can see that. And I'm a healer. I do a lot of different things under that umbrella. I'm a certified holistic life coach, a certified holistic health coach. I'm a breathwork facilitator. I'm an embodiment teacher. I lead women's circles and retreats and online group programs. And, I'm constantly creating opportunities for women to gather in soulful community. So I've been doing a lot of virtual events right now during this time. And you can find me on Instagram. You can find me here, obviously. And you can also find me online. My website is stephanieburgcoaching.com. Thanks so much for having me, Lindsay. It's been so wonderful to talk to you.
So wonderful. Yeah, thanks for being here.
And thanks everyone for listening.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I did see Emily said, I resonate with that feeling of feminine energy being opposite. It's terrifying and beautiful. Yes. I'm craving it, but struggling. Yes. So again, I just remind you that it's okay for it to be both. And it's also okay not to know like what to do or how to navigate it. But I would say more than anything, it's important to allow it. So whatever it is, like today, for example, I was feeling like really on fire and frustrated and just like this inside, and lots of hormonal joy that just like changes every second. And I sat down and I just allowed it. I was like, okay, well, what if I'm not trying to make it small? What if I'm not trying to make it different? What if I'm not trying to control my experience? What if I'm not trying to control my emotions? What would happen? I have this time. I'm just going to let it come. And I felt it, and it felt really big. And then I just started laughing. And then I felt really quiet inside. And like when you allow yourself just to like open up and let things out, you are more easily able to return back to a more centered experience of yourself. So like if you're feeling that, like what can you open up to? What can you allow? What can you free about that feeling or the way that wants to be experienced? And Stephanie does such a beautiful job teaching a class called Embody, which is a way of feeling through movement.
Yeah.
Unguided movement. It's just intuitive movement, and it's space to move. So another really powerful practice would be to turn on a piece of music that resonates with how you feel, or makes it even more powerful. Just start moving. Let it move. Let it move through your body. Let it move through your mind. Let it move through your breath. And then move on. Instead of white knuckling it. Do you have anything to add to that, Steph?
I love everything that you said, particularly just about that, like the process of letting go and surrendering and just letting things move. I think that's the prolonged suffering comes from resisting the allowing, resisting things to move through you. And dance is obviously such a special tool to me. Something that as you mentioned, I facilitate and teach, and I really dedicated a lot of my life to dance. And it's something that really can help us to connect to source or spirit, but also to connect more deeply to our bodies. And so you mentioned like putting on a piece of music, like a song or something that kind of identifies with how you feel. If you're feeling angry, like choosing something that expresses that in music. Like music really helps us to kind of shift our energetic state or our vibration into, if that feels like a lot, if that feels confronting and you're like, ugh, it's not comfortable for me to move in that way, or to move period, or to dance period, like put the music on and let it wash over you until you feel the impulse to move in whatever way that is. Like drop below the neck and see how your body wants to speak through movement. And as I'm saying that, don't think too hard about it. Like there's a part of you that's hearing it and receiving it. And that's something that I can really guide women through in movement experiences. But your body is your greatest ally in moving those difficult emotions, right? You feel them through your body. You feel them through your mind, yes, you experience them through your mind, but you feel them through your body. And so being able to like really bring your body on board to move those feelings and emotions. Emotions are just energy flowing through you, right? So it can be as simple as moving and feeling and letting it go. And then just the other thing that I would add to all of that is this question that I've been playing with, that is, what if everything that you're experiencing in your life right now is 100% a part of the plan, whatever that plan may be, like the orchestrated, divine orchestrated plan, that your life is actually unfolding exactly as it's meant to, even the tough stuff, the sticky stuff, the shitty stuff, and the joyful things as well. Like, what if it's all perfect and there's nothing to fix, nothing to prove, nothing to really change, simply to allow, to receive, to let go, to be. I was just reading, I know I'm a little late to the game with this, but Dear Lover by David Data, which is beautiful. Yeah, of course you are. Yeah. Of course you are. And he was saying in it, it's not about what you do in your life, essentially, or what you do with your life. It's how you live it. And so that kind of goes back to the thing that you mentioned earlier, Lindsay, which is like, just change, like you can change your internal state and not have to do anything on the external. It's how you're living your life.
Yes. When in doubt, drop below the neck.
Yes.
I'll leave you all with that. When in doubt, drop below the neck. Thank you so much, my love.
Thank you so much. It's been such an honor to be here with you.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time.
Anytime.
Okay, friends. Well, look for this again. We will do this again. I will do this again. We will do this again together. And I'm excited to see what kind of form this takes on. So we're both sending you so much love.
Yes.
And we'll see you soon.
Bye for now.